Church cares, and so does the St. Raymond Annadas Foundation for Freedom, Family, and Faith. Hi, I'm Anne DeSantis, Executive Director. In 2015, the Mercedarian Friars came together because they wanted to start a foundation to help families in crisis. And that's exactly what we've been doing over these years. Whether it be something to do with divorce, separation, trauma, job loss, loss of a loved one, or other adversities, we've helped so many families get through those tough times through the spiritual works of mercy. We'd love to hear from you. Please do get in touch with us for our services. They are prayer, priestly consultation, podcasts and videos, and programs and events. We look forward to hearing from you. Just go to nonotus.org and get in touch with me. I look forward to hearing from you. God bless.
Fiat Ministry Network and Patchwork Heart Ministry present Journeys in Faith. Now, here's Anne DeSantis.
Hello, welcome to Journeys in Faith here on Fiat Ministry Network. This is Anne DeSantis, and I am blessed to be here this evening with my wonderful guest, Mother Clare. And Mother, I want to thank you so much for joining us here on this program.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Absolutely. And as I do on most of our shows, I have a bio for you. So I'd love to read that bio because it really gives the detail of who you are and exactly what you do and about your religious order. And so Mother Clare Matthiass, CFR, is the superior of the Franciscan Sisters of the Renewal and is the author of the new children's book, The Unsolvable Problem, which is the first in the series, Little Convent in the Big City. Mother Clare also authored the popular book, Discerning Religious Life, as well as A Vow, small discussion group discernment program. Mother Clare was born in Germany and spent her childhood moving from base to base with her family as her father was serving in the U.S. military. She attended Franciscan University at Steubenville, Ohio, where she studied theology and history. Mother Clare has been a member of the Franciscan Sisters of the Renewal since 1998. The twofold apostolic mission of the community is hands-on work with the poor and evangelization. She became community servant, superior general, in 2018. Mother Clare lives at Our Lady, Queen of Angels Convent in East Harlem. The CFR sisters currently have 3 convents in New York City, missions in Leeds, England, Drogheda, Ireland, and in Atlantic City, New Jersey, as well as sisters serving the Holy Father at the Vatican Secretariat of State. Thank you so much again. And what a faith journey you have had.
Yeah. Yes. Well, first of all, it's a joy to be with you. It's a joy to have this opportunity and to share a bit of my faith journey and what has followed from
That's
that.
right. We'd love to hear how you became a religious sister and anything else that you want to share.
Sure. Well, as you mentioned in the bio there, I grew up on military bases pretty much exclusively. You know, my whole first 18 years of life, I was trucking around with my family. And if any of your listeners are military, have a military background, they'll understand a little bit about what that's like. But life on a military base is, of course, the Catholic Church is everywhere. And so because there are military chaplains, I had all of my sacraments and I was able to have a Catholic upbringing, but not with Catholic school. You know, we went to what are called DODS schools, Department of Defense dependent schools. So the schools that are made available for what are called the dependents of the military service member. And I just mentioned that because the way most people or many people become acquainted with religious life is through maybe the Catholic school system, or perhaps that they had sisters in school, at least back in the olden days, that was the case. But I did not ever meet a sister growing up. I never, ever saw a religious sister on a military base. I was almost completely unaware of the religious life. Now, because of Mother Teresa and kind of the fame that she had in the Catholic world, and then really in the whole world, I was aware of religious life through her. But I never connected Mother Teresa and the possibility for my own life. That was not a connect that I ever made until I went away to college. And when I went to Franciscan University, which of course I'm sure many of your listeners would know of, a very, very authentically Catholic university setting that is run by friars. So there are Franciscan friars on campus, and as well as many religious sisters who come through to study or even to teach occasionally as guest professors. So I was exposed to religious life for really the first time when I went away to college. Now, I already had a relationship with the Lord and I was praying, and that's a whole nother story, how, my prayer life really began, and my real, I would say, authentic relationship with the Lord started at a younger age. But the question of religious life just wasn't part of that. Now I find myself at university and I'm encountering these religious people, and the question comes to me, could, now I have to admit and confess here publicly that I hoped that maybe not actually called to that lack of understanding about what religious life really was. And so, although it's individuals that look very pious, sort of attracted to them on one level, on another level, I thought, oh, I'm sure their life is very serious and very sort of staunch, and I don't know, I just had a little bit of a negative impression of what it could possibly be. And although I may not have admitted that at the time, if I'm really honest, that was there. So I'm on the one hand drawn to it, on the one hand asking the question, but then on the other hand saying, oh Lord, please don't call me to that. So my discernment then was a little bit complicated because I was pretty conflicted inside. I was pretty conflicted. Gosh, does God really want me to do something that I don't want to do? And how do I reconcile these two things, God's potential will and my clear and obvious will? My own will seemed more clear to me than his will at the time. And does he really want me to be unhappy? And that's what I thought, if I become a religious, certainly that means, deep down I'll be unhappy, even though could they really be happy all the way down to the core of their being? And that was the question I had. So I was pretty conflicted, and it was pretty challenging to navigate that then, that discernment process. And so, but eventually, obviously, here I am, I made it to my true calling, and that, as hard as that, navigating discernment was, God in his mercy and in his goodness, he got me to where he wanted me, which was to be his spouse, to be the spouse of Jesus Christ as a religious sister. It's an old story. This is going back a few years. Vocation brings me such joy, and I really cannot imagine, my life any other way at this point. This is my call. It brings me tremendous joy. I am so grateful that God is so patient, and he was very merciful and patient while I figured it out. And I can see that my fears, and my misconceptions that, that maybe this life is very, very sort of this idea of this being staunch and serious and stifling the freedom. And these were kind of the ideas in my mind. That is not true. That really has not been my experience. And so I can say that with great joy from the other side. And so because of that, a lot of my work in religious life has been helping other people, figure out their vocation too.
I know that you and I had a phone conversation. I got to know a little bit about you, but every time you talk to someone, you learn something else. So it's just great to have this conversation, not just for our audience, but even for me too, and getting to know you and your vocation. So tell us, if you would, a little bit about the order. Now, we do have to take a break and we'll learn more after we come back, but maybe some basic things about the order.
Sure. So the Franciscans of the Renewal, we were founded here in New York City, and we were founded to serve the very poor. So to live among the poor and to serve the poor and to evangelize. So fundamentally, that's kind of the nucleus of our call. And so we were founded in 1988. The friars there's a parallel community of Franciscan friars of the Renewal who were founded in 1987. And then 1 year later, in 1988, the Franciscan Sisters of the Renewal began. And again, living in inner city neighborhoods, living among the poor so that we can meet their most immediate needs and also to evangelize.
Beautiful. I know we're going to learn more when we come back. So we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back here on Journeys in Faith. Welcome back to Journeys in Faith. Thank you so much for joining me here on Fiat Ministry Network with Mother Clare. And during the first half of the show, Mother talked about her vocation and a little bit about the religious order too. Now, you're also a Catholic author, and you have only not only authored one book, but a couple books. So tell us about that. How did that come to be that you began writing?
Yes, well, it was not my intention or plan necessarily. But as I was sharing in the beginning part, my journey of discernment was complicated and difficult. And I often call it the agony of discernment because it was such a challenge. And I wouldn't wish it on anyone to have to muddle through that journey of figuring out God's will without some concrete helps. And there is a way that discernment could be simpler and more peaceful and even more joyful, more of an adventure and less of an agony. And so I was actually asked to write the book. Sam Alzheimer with Vianney Vocations recognized the need for something more elaborate on discernment for women. He recognized that need. I had written a very small pamphlet, a small booklet, and he said, "Why don't you expand that into a book?" And I was like, "I don't know if I am an author at heart, And he encouraged me. And we went for it, and I wrote the book, and it's been very popular and very helpful for young women, which was the point. Whenever a young woman tells me, "Oh, that book really helped me navigate my discernment process," I just say, "Oh, thank God, thank God." That was the point in writing, was to help others to know some basic principles of discernment that they wouldn't have to make the same mistakes I made. And so, and I can hear from young men and young women who say, the principles here really helped me discern. And that just fills me with joy. It fills me with joy. So we're meant to help each other along the journey, the path to heaven. And so I see writing as a way to do that.
And this last piece that you did, the last book, I know that you said you're working with Viana Vocations. I want to make a shout out to Dominic D'Souza, who introduced the two of us. He's the founder of Smart Catholics. And he, of course, is working with them and introduced me to you. So what are the hopes with your latest book? Because I know that you'd love to get it into the hands of a lot of archdioceses, dioceses, Catholic schools. Please share with us, because I'm hoping that as people are watching this video, that this could be a way that for them to find out about you and to get the book for their students.
Oh, yes. Thank you for that. So yes, this new project, this is a children's book. And so I teamed up with a wonderful Catholic illustrator, Michael Corsini, and we've created a children's book, which is the first of a series. And the central character is a religious sister. And the idea here is that in this day and age that we live in, so many of our Catholic children have never laid eyes on a sister. They have just never seen a sister, or never met a sister. So many are not being educated by sisters anymore. And yet God is still calling women to religious life. But if you don't know of this world of religious life, how can you ever discern it? So this children's book project is a way to sort of back up the question right to childhood and open a window for little children to just see the wonderful world of religious life in a joyful and in a beautiful and in an authentic way. Even though it's for children, it's meant to be very authentic and representative of what the religious life is, what it's meant to be, and what it is in fact. So those who are listening or viewing could go to littleconvent.com and see not only the book, which is important, but the mission. The bigger mission is to introduce our children to religious life, our Catholic children who maybe have not seen it, who really don't know about it. And there's so many of us who say things like, and I hear so many parents saying this, and then of an older generation as well, where are the sisters? And if only our parish had sisters, and if only my children or my grandchildren could be taught by sisters. And there is this longing and this desire for the Catholic family to be connected again to the religious life. And although this does not solve that problem, but it could begin to make the introduction. And so there's a sponsor a classroom opportunity on the website so that listeners who feel that way, who say, I do want my grandchildren or my children to be exposed to sisters, they could sponsor a classroom at their local Catholic school or the Catholic school they went to when they were a child, so that the children in, say, a second grade class could all receive the book. And the idea there, again, is then they're brought into the world of Sister Mary Andy and her lovable sisters and some of the adventures of religious life, and they can be introduced in a kind of a beautiful and playful way.
That is such a good idea. I have to say, I love that idea of sponsoring a classroom. So they go to littleconvent.com, is it?
Correct.
And so that they can
Littleconvent.com.
sponsor?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And they can just, or even half a classroom, they can just say, I don't want maybe a half a class, or get together with a friend and sponsor a whole class or several classes, and coast to coast, wherever the school they want to adopt. And then Viana Vocations will take it from there. They will contact the school. They will find out how many children are in that classroom, and they will send the precise number of books needed. And let's say it's more than the 20 that are the sponsorship, they'll just throw in, by the goodness of their heart, 3 more books or 5 more books, so that each child can go home with a book. Now, the beauty of that is not only is the child being introduced to religious life, but their parents, their brothers and sisters, their cousins, and then hopefully the whole family can get a little window into the convent that they maybe never had before.
That is beautiful. And have you had experiences? I mean, now that you've authored this book and that there's this desire to educate, have you ever been able to go into that classroom settings or be able to talk to some of the families about it? Have you had that opportunity?
I've had a ball doing that. Yes, absolutely. Here in New York, schools end kind of on the late side. And so New York and New Jersey ending mid-June and even late June. So school was still in session when the book came out. So, we've been going around to the schools and doing book readings for the children and then donating the books. So we've been sponsoring all the schools around us here in New York and donating the book and just trying to make that introduction. Now, it has been a ball to sit there in the classroom and read the book and let the children ask me questions and see them responding to it. It's been beautiful. Even just yesterday, a little boy came up to me on the street. Well, he came up to another sister actually and said, "Did you write the book?" And she brought him over to me and I said, "Did you see the book?" And I was pretty stunned. And he had seen the book and he said, "I really liked it." He was maybe 10 years old. And I said, "Well, what did you like about it?" And this is just a young boy here in East Harlem. And I said, "What did you like about it?" He said, "You showed us the convent." And that's what he liked. You know, he lives in this neighborhood and he walks by the convent all the time, but he got to see, in a sense, through the art, the chapel and the notion the bell rings 5 times a day and the sisters go and pray. And he learned things about us that he didn't know, even though he knows us. So I thought, well, isn't that precious? I was just thrilled to get that response right there on the street, you know?
Oh, I love that. Love to hear it. And I love the charism of your religious order for the sisters of that, like serving the poor. I wondered if you could talk a little bit more about that and what that's like for you, because I know that's a big facet also of what you do, because you're not a cloistered sister. You are you're active, right? If I'm correct.
Correct.
You are an
Yes,
active
yes.
sister. So tell us about that and what has that been like for you and for the other sisters?
Okay, yes. Well, we, our founder really is Saint Francis of Assisi, and his, he's one of the most popular saints in our church. And his great moment of conversion is that moment, that encounter with the leper. You know, he had a repugnance towards lepers, and he overcame that, and he embraced the leper, kissed the leper as he made a donation. And that moment that he overcame himself and his repugnance for this poor, sick person, and he overcame himself, and he said the bitter became sweet. And from then on, he always wanted to be among the lepers. We consider them the poorest of the poor of that time period. And so Franciscans now, we want to be among the poorest of the poor. And in the United States of America, which is an affluent country overall, we still do have poverty, and we have places noted for poverty. So we love to live in those places noted by poverty, to be among Christ in the poor. Jesus himself identifies with the poor. When I was hungry, you gave me to drink. He identifies himself with the hungry, the thirsty, the naked. He himself is there. So we live here to be with Jesus, to minister to Jesus, represented in his poor people. And it's a gift to us. We love it. We wouldn't want to be anywhere else. And then in this relationship with the poor, we're reminded really of our own poverty, because the truth is we are all poor and we are all beggars before the Lord, totally dependent upon our good Father in heaven to give us all good gifts. So it's a beautiful opportunity for us to be reminded of who we are, to be brothers and sisters with our beloved poor here in East Harlem, in the South Bronx, wherever we may be, and to receive Jesus Christ from them and to bring Jesus Christ to them as well.
So well said. Thank you. Also, I wondered if there was anything that's happening this year or anything else in your religious order, even with you personally, that you would like our audience to know about. Any kind of call to action, either with Vianney Vocations or with the book. Please do let us know.
Oh, thank you. Well, I hope people will check out the Vianney Vocations website and their store and littleconvent.com, and consider adopting a school. They might be thinking, well, the school year is coming to an end, but don't let that stop you, because Vianney Vocations will continue to take orders. And then the first week of school, if school's out in your area already, they will make a gift of that book to those students in the beginning of the school year. So I think just to keep that in mind. And then because it is a series, there will be more books coming out year by year that will help young people continue to just be in touch with our Lord, with our church, and with the religious life in this kind of adorable way. So I hope that, we have to stay united, I would say, and the call to action I think that we're experiencing as sisters is to stay united, to stay behind our Holy Father, and to stay on our knees, because our country is in such need of prayer and the love of Jesus that comes through, first of all, through prayer. So we need to really stay united in love and in prayer at this time. I think we all feel that, how critical this time is.
Mm. Yes, I agree with you completely. Our country and we personally, every single person, we need our relationship with Christ, don't we? We need to have that communication going back and forth between listening and talking, right, with the Lord.
Yes.
Do you have any suggestions as we come to a close pretty soon about ways that people might be able to grow in faith, whether it be prayer, adoration, or anything that has helped you to stay close to Christ?
What a wonderful question. Yes. That is right now, I think, with our bishops making this initiative for the Eucharistic revival, I'm just so proud of our bishops and leading the way with making, we just celebrated Corpus Christi over the weekend, and we did a Eucharistic procession here in East Harlem. Many Eucharistic processions are happening throughout the country with this Eucharistic revival. And so I would say, for me, Eucharistic adoration has been one of the main ways that I have been able to experience the closeness of Jesus and to develop my own prayer life. And I think that that personal prayer time, now that could be in the home, in a little corner, a quiet corner, of course, we can pray anywhere because of the indwelling, for sure. But Eucharistic adoration is a very, very poignant and special place and way to pray. So I would really encourage people who don't know about Eucharistic adoration to pursue it a little bit, look into it, and find an adoration chapel, because there's nothing more powerful than being connected to Jesus in his real presence.
Yeah, that's right. And what you mentioned about the Eucharistic, that this time, these 3 years, I think that many of the dioceses and archdioceses are putting aside that time and saying, let's focus on the presence of Christ in the Eucharist. Let's do
Yes.
Eucharistic processions. Let's be invitational in terms of inviting people to the sacramental life. I think that's a beautiful thing. Thanks for bringing that up, because I just went to a Corpus Christi procession over the last week, the end of last week at my own parish, and boy, was it beautiful. And that closeness, and just this weekend of celebrating the Eucharist. And so thank you. So we do have to end this program, Sister. I wondered if you had any final words before we end.
Well, just first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity and for us to come together in this way and to get the word out. And for all of the listeners, the last word would say, I hope each and everyone listening knows how loved they are by God, that our good God is a loving Father, and his plans for us are good. Even if we might think they might be oppressive and difficult, his plans for us are truly good. And we have a good, good Father. And more than any other message, that would be the message I want to get out. God is good. He's always good, and his plans are good.
Amen. Always good to hear. Thank you so much, Mother, for joining us. God bless you. And we will see all of you here next week on Journeys in Faith on Fiat Ministry Network. Excuse me, I have an announcement. This is our end of season. I made a mistake. So I want to make sure that I want to thank our producers, Kent Kohaski and also Jennifer Sinclair, Patchwork Heart Ministry, Bill Snyder, for producing the show. We're in 2 years. This is episode 101. We will be back in the fall of 2022. Thank you all so much. We'll see you soon. God bless.
Journeys of Faith is a production of Fiat Ministry Network and Patchwork Heart Ministry. For more information about Journeys of Faith, email info@fiatministrynetwork.tv. And be sure to friend, follow, and like us on social media. Just search Journeys in Faith with Anne DeSantis.